Are you looking for more out of your life? Do you need ideas on how to start new businesses and how to move forward in your own personal life? Well, guess what? You have come to the right radio show. At You Can Overcome Anything podcast show, you will learn and hear from many people from all walks of life who are sharing their challenges, their stories, the habits, and the mind shifts they had to overcome to become who they are today. On top, you will get a chance to connect and see how you can overcome anything by networking and learning about your next move through this radio show. I present to you our great speakers at You Can Overcome Anything podcast show with your host, Cesar Espino. Hello there, and welcome back to another episode of You Can Overcome Anything podcast show. It is your host, Cesar Espino, and today I have two special guests, Adam Tao and Rebecca Miller. Hey guys, how are you guys today?
Good. How are you?
I'm doing good, thank you. So before we dive in, I want to just kind of give our listeners a little bit of your background, and then we can dive in. In the age of mega firm, Adam and Rebecca have adopted the regular model of financial services to create a practice that will become a magnet for people like them, where they develop innovative, dynamic, and diverse financial plans for innovative and dynamic, diverse people. Adam and Rebecca created a dynamic wealth strategies as husband and wife team. They were both working at Fortune 100 financial companies. They will come home and chat about the methods of reaching out to potential customers, running meetings, and designing plans that were being drilled into them all day, but didn't feel genuine to either of them. They value independence, and Adam and Rebecca both felt they were being pushed to sell properties, products, even if they were more effective solutions elsewhere. They knew there had to be a better way to offer financial advice, even if going at it alone seemed like an uphill battle. Doing it their way meant too much more for them not to go for it. They created Dynamic Wealth Strategies Inc. as an exciting, approachable, and like-minded alternative to your typical firm, where they actively seek to engage a broad range of people in their community, offer a diverse range of solutions to independently develop financial plans their clients want and need, and they value authenticity in their practice. Wow, that's amazing. And definitely when we talk about financial and financial literacy, I think that's something that you will probably agree that we are definitely lacking a lot. And even when people are going to get either a associate's, bachelor's, or master's, there's not so much of that being taught in school. Nevertheless, before we dive into that, though, I wanted to kind of get a little bit of your background. Where are you guys originally from, and how was your upbringing for both of you guys?
Sure. So both of us were actually, we grew up in Long Island. I was born in Ohio, but my parents were from Long Island. And when my sister and I were little, they decided to move back. Grew up in a very blue collar, hardworking family, watched my parents go to work every day, and my father go to work every night. And the main reason why I chose to get into this field was I actually witnessed firsthand some real struggles when it came to finances. I watched my parents fight and have tremendous stress and anxiety about whether it was everyday things like, shopping, groceries, paying for medical needs, college, etc., and wanted to make a difference and be able to not only help, myself, my family, but obviously be able to help educate and inform as many other families as possible.
Awesome. How about you?
We also grew up in Long Island. We didn't know each other growing up. Adam and I ended up meeting later on in life. Growing up, it was a little bit different for me. My parents were very successful at their work. My dad was a business owner, and he also worked in accounting. And, they, in a different way, it's hard for me to say without feeling a little bit like it's going to sound spoiled or whatnot, but it's just because they always wanted to provide me. They're doing what parents do. They want to provide everything they can for their children, right? So I was very fortunate that I was able to go to college. They paid for it. I didn't have a student loan. So opportunities like that are things that I'm extremely grateful for. What I found early in my adult life, though, is that I wasn't prepared to take care of myself independently. And it's something that I started to really, really want to do and want to learn about. And they meant well, but it's just that there wasn't that personal finance education growing up for me either, in a different way.
Yeah, what's interesting and definitely something to notate. Kind of looking back at both of you guys' background, right? One you might say, growing up with the financial struggles and being able to see a lot of the challenges and or problems that created. On the other hand, you have you who probably had everything and perhaps didn't really have to worry about any of that. Nevertheless, as you lead up to adulthood, there's different things, dynamics, as you said. Maybe you were not prepared to be independent just because you had somebody else taking care of you, and on the other one, you're trying to find a way to really go through that real life struggle and be able to get to the same place you're in now, right? So, what were some of those lessons that perhaps looking back, both of you guys can take away from your childhood or growing up to now?
Yeah, so a couple came to my mind as I was listening to you speak. One was, planning for not being a burden for children and grandchildren. Actually, it was in the early days of Rebecca and I dating when, unfortunately, my grandfather had passed away. And I remember my mother is one of four, and there was no arrangements for a funeral. Tremendous fighting, bickering, who's going to pay for what, why wasn't this done? And it created a lot of tension. So much so that I know my mother didn't end up speaking to one of my uncles for a long time. So when we speak with other families, we always talk about being prepared for the worst. And that can mean a lot of different things, but obviously a very common thing we like to speak to help educate is making sure, because nobody wants to be a burden for their children or grandchildren. So I would say that's one. And then number two, I would say, it's funny, Rebecca and I's parents, they live very close to each other now down in Florida. And, but my mother, my father never put away into a retirement account. My mother did for a period. And I remember how good it made her feel because she felt like she was getting somewhere and she felt like she was breaking the string of, what my grandparents were unable to do. But I also know that she ended up having to tap into that when difficulties arise. And I remember how painful that was for her. And not only that, but having to give away so much to early age withdrawal penalties or to taxes. And now that they are actually retired, it's hard to see them not have the additional means to be able to do whatever it is that they're looking forward to doing.
Yeah, no, definitely. And it's interesting how, unfortunately, you see this a lot in many families, right? When, a parent or somebody passed away, there's always that battle, that fight, that, not getting along and or fighting for whatever that might be, whether it's some sort of inheritance or who's going to take care of the arrangements or, who's going to keep the house or who's going to keep the dogs and the cats. I mean, whatever, right? You're always seeing those fights, and it's unfortunate that people have to go through that. And again, it comes back to being able to educate people in a different aspect, and we're not doing a lot of that nowadays, right? What about you, Rebecca? What was one of your biggest lessons and takeaways?
Sure. There's two primary lessons come to mind. The first is, like I mentioned, my parents worked very, very hard. Neither of them came from tremendous wealth, and they really built something for our family. And I see them now. They made smart decisions. They planned well, and they have this amazing retirement. It's like the retirement that I would dream about. It's the retirement that I want. They're traveling whenever they want to. They get to come visit us and their grandchildren, and they go visit, my brother and his kids. Really, when they have tremendous freedom. And what I've always seen throughout my life from them, it's been very positive, is they didn't have money just to have it. They always wanted to enjoy it. So whether that was doing stuff with the family, helping others, it was always a means to do something good and positive rather than just numbers on a page. And that's how I've lived my life. And that's how I want to continue living my life and build my own personal wealth as well for our family. so that we can enjoy it in the future. And the other lesson, it goes back to, it's funny you mentioned the word burden, because that's kind of how I felt in a weird way as soon as I became, a young adult and left, out of college. I started to feel like a burden because I was getting assistance from my parents, which again, it's a beautiful thing. It's a wonderful thing, but emotionally that was very painful. And I wanted that confidence to earn my own way, to not have to rely on anyone else for support. And it really was actually like very much a family struggle, I feel, in our relationship, because it was a changing relationship. So that might be something that is not talked about a lot. But that was also very, very difficult, and a lesson that I learned.
Yeah. What comes to mind based on what you just mentioned too is being able to have and enjoy your life and a retirement, right? And I think, again, we go back to the idea of we tend to be missing out on that concept. And it seems like people, you grow up, you're a kid, you go to school, you go to college, then you work, and then you drop dead, right? And so when I look back at that, that's not the point of being alive. That's not the point of being in this world. You're not just here to get up every day, go to work, and barely make it, and then before you know it, you're here today and you're gone tomorrow. You got to be able to find a way or a vehicle to have the means to have a better retirement, and also not only that, also enjoy life through the process, right? Number one. Number two, be able to be educated, right, in terms of how to better handle your affairs. The other thing too is, like, I heard it from somebody else, and it's like, why wait until you're 50, 55, 60, 65 to retire? What about if you have small retirements throughout your life? Meaning, what about if you go for a vacation every 2 or 3 or 4 months, whether it's for 3 days, 4 days, a getaway weekend or a week, and do that throughout your life? And it's sad to see that a lot of people don't do that, right? They're working constantly. And I've met a lot of people, and I was one of them too. When I was working for corporate America, I was working my ass off, 10, 12, 13, 14 hours. And I accumulated so much vacation, yet I didn't take the vacation because I was so busy working at my job, right? And so a lot of times we got to be able to find that balance. Now, for both of you guys, growing up, obviously you have a very good understanding of the financial literacy and world. Is that something you wanted to do and venture into, or do you guys had any other ideas of doing something different in terms of industry or career?
So I've always liked and enjoyed numbers. I did very well on the math portion of the SATs, and the reading portion, I was looking for some pictures because I'm definitely a numbers guy. I genuinely, I went to school and I studied psychology and working with people and understanding, what motivates them, what drives fear and or anxiety. And when I came out of school, passionate about fitness and didn't really know what I wanted to do, probably like most when they first come out of school. And I was working as a personal trainer, and it was here in New York City. And it was really, I think it was 2007 going into 2008 and the financial crisis. Mm-hmm. And what I found interesting was just working with so many of these clients in the fitness world. Some of them worked in finance and others, were obviously affected by it. But what I learned was sometimes just the communication, knowing there's somebody there. That I always talk about speaking non-emotionally about situations that can be very emotional. I found myself gravitating towards it, and really because wanted to be able, money we're very much tied to, naturally so, but being able to be there for somebody so that when things are unraveling, they know there's somebody on the other end of that phone that understands their situation, or, will be there to help to calm them down. Or maybe what I've learned as I've especially gotten into this, we talk a lot about planning for the worst. Nobody knows what the worst may be or when it may come. But even with what's going on now, knowing when I speak out, when I reach out to clients and their families, nobody likes seeing investments down, obviously. But at the same time, if it's not adversely affecting you because you've taken the necessary steps to prepare for that worst case scenario, that really matters. And it was during that time at the gym and that tough time in the world that really motivated me to obtain my licenses and to get into this profession.
Yeah, no, that's awesome. What about you, Rebecca?
I was smiling when you asked that question, because we find in this field, when you talk to other people like us who are also advisors or financial consultants, that nobody seems to have that job, like a dream job when they're 13. They kind of find their way into the industry. It's a very funny thing. So there's always a great backstory. And for me, I went to school for something completely different. I went to school for musical theater. I went to Penn State University, so I got a real solid education there. I thought that I wanted to be a performer. I loved singing, dancing, acting, that triple thing. And did a little bit of work right after college, but it was funny. It was like right after that time, I started feeling that thing in my gut, feeling like, one, I didn't love it as much as I once did when I started. And two, it wasn't providing me that financial foundation that I realized I wanted. And so I knew I had to make a shift, and it really took me a while to figure out what that was. I ended up meeting Adam in 2009. We met, we started dating, and he was working in the financial industry at that time. So I started hearing about it because he would tell me kind of everything that went on, and it piqued my interest. And years later, he actually asked, he said, why don't we start this practice together where you can basically, oversee everything, run the operations, figure out how to market it. And then he would primarily do the advising. At that time, I said, absolutely not. I don't want to work together. This isn't my industry. It's not my background. But it took me about a year to let that idea actually sink in. And I realized it was a phenomenal opportunity to build something together. And I got really excited about it. And so from there, I started getting my own licenses so that I could also work in the industry. And we went from there. So I had a funny way in as well.
So now Rebecca's the boss at home and also in the office.
Well, that's a good combination, right? So definitely.
Yes.
That's right.
Happy wife, happy life, right?
That's it.
Rebecca, so actually you said something that I think is pretty interesting, right? And you said you let the idea sink in for over a year, right? At first you were kind of putting up this probably barrier, or saying, hey, this is not for me. And I find that very interesting because, again, a lot of times in many things that we do, we sometimes talk ourselves out of doing something, or we don't believe we have the capacity, the ability, or the desire to do that, and we let so many opportunities go to waste. And so I want to maybe tap in a little bit in terms of what is your thought process in terms of the idea of how powerful the mind might be for one's health and or for their future, to be able to get more out of life, right? Because I do believe there's an African proverb that says, if there's no enemy within, there's no enemy outside that can do you no harm. So I do believe that in anything, just like in this business, in the financing business, it's all about the things that are going into your head. Can I make the numbers work? It's numbers, right? Can I make the math work? Can I do this? Can I see myself doing this kind of job? And a lot of times we let those fears or the unknown take away the opportunity. How was that for you, or can you maybe relate to some of that stuff in terms of that mind triggers and mindset?
Absolutely. I feel like I live by this idea. I call it personally inside my own head, the open door theory.
Yeah.
And that started actually back when I was working in theater, because you're always getting told no, constantly. And what I would do is I would always look for the open door. So I would always kind of look for the opportunity. If I was told no, okay, fine, boom, move past it. But when there was an opportunity, I would just go towards that, even if it was very scary. And some things felt very scary and intimidating, things you didn't know much about. And, this Adam's ask was one of those things. It wasn't a no, it was an opportunity. It was an invitation. And it definitely felt scary, because that was not my background. I had to learn a lot. I had to trust myself that I was smart enough and capable enough to start fresh in another industry. But I like living towards that, because it also keeps me very in a positive mindset, because you're looking for things that are yeses, that are opportunities. So that keeps me going. And I relate to what you're saying in that way.
Definitely. Anything to add to that, Adam?
Well, I think it's I think trust you pick up from different people along the journey in life, and I think sometimes you make a decision with the help of others. What went through my mind, speaking of being courageous and being open to kind of push through something that you don't know is on the other side, was I developed a friendship. He never ended up working with us because of health issues he had, but he really motivated. He knew I was a type 1 diabetic, and he really motivated me. He was very persistent. You should speak out. You should reach out to the endocrinologist. See it. And being comfortable, maybe being lazy, just not wanting to make a change. I didn't take up that offer, and it took a long time, but finally enough pushing to go see this doctor. What I understood, what he was looking to instill in me, and it was that this was somebody that not just would take better care with you from just the numbers, but would take the time with you. He wasn't just bringing you in and sending you out in 10 minutes trying to, see as many people as possible. He wasn't, somebody like my whole life. It was, regimented and like kind of like what you said about, taking those little vacations, enjoying life every 3-4 months. He wasn't, somebody that said never, have a piece of cake or a beer or whatever. He said, no, everything in moderation is good, and we're going to learn how to deal with it. And the ironic thing is, because you could tell he genuinely cared. He doesn't even take our insurance, so it's value. So happy to see him. But the ironic thing is we are able to eat the occasional sweet, and we are able to go out to dinner, and we eat healthy and all those other things as well. But the end result was a happiness factor for myself and Rebecca, and now our son Elon, because it's as good of blood sugar control as I've ever had in 30 years. So that's what went through my mind in relation to what you were saying.
Yeah, no, I love that. Definitely. What do you guys think is the reason why there's not a lot of talk in schools or even at work, if you're working for a Fortune 500 or whatever type of company, where they talk about financial literacy and the planning for retirement? I mean, obviously in corporations you hear about the 401ks and certain things here and there, right? And it's just one product. Except again, you don't hear a lot of that in school or anywhere else. Why do you think that's the case?
I think it's because a lot of ways we're kind of systematic. Like, we're told, to put money in a bank account, but we don't know why, or we don't know that there may be other options. We're told, to put money in a 401k, but we're not necessarily told why we're putting it in there, or what the different investments are within it, or the different tax implications of it. I think it's more systematic. I think it's more, what comes to mind is a brainwashed approach to, kind of follow this path, but not really know why we're following it at all. It definitely should be talked about. We've met so many people over the years that don't even, and it's not their fault. They don't know why their money is there or what they have. And I think if it was just more the system, the process, was taking us down a better, a more stronger informed process, I think that would do all of us really good. It would do us well.
Yeah.
I can't answer why it's not taught in school, the fundamentals.
Right.
My mom, actually, when she was working, she was a special education high school teacher. And one of the courses she taught was, what was it called? Life skills. And she taught her students these kinds of things that people should learn, how to balance a checkbook, how to review your accounts, things of that nature, because I guess the mentality was that her students would be more likely to go right out into the workforce and get a job as opposed to going to college. And so these are the things that should be prepared. But it doesn't make any sense to me why that's not taught to the general population.
Right.
Ironically, I do have a girlfriend that is She is part of a program that is pushing for states to implement that into their curriculum, which is very, very cool. So students will now be getting personal finance education in regular classroom, which is super cool. Yeah. You know, when it comes to later down the line, you know, I was thinking about what you said about the 401ks. This is not to knock a 401k. It's just that the employer who offers it, it is great, yes, to attract employees. Yes, we have a 401k. Yes, we may match you to up to a certain percentage. That's great. But the employer also gets tax benefits from having that plan as well. Mm-hmm. So, you know, it's made to sound very, very spicy, and it's not a bad thing. It's just that no alternatives are ever discussed, or, okay, what can you do besides your 401k to maybe hit those middle of the road, middle of life goals, you know? I think that's why the 401k is harped on, because there are tax benefits to the companies who are offering them.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. And the other thing too, that I guess, you know, and it would be good if they can push that, your friend can push that and actually start teaching that in some of the colleges around the States. The other thing too, that they're not doing too good of a job, and I don't understand this concept either, is that they don't teach you how to become a business owner or go and open up your own business, right? You know, they'll give you the very minimum to be a good employee, right? And so definitely that's something that when people venture out into from a job, 8 to 5 job, to becoming their own boss, it's a bit scary, right? And so I want to tap into that for you guys, because both of you guys were actually working for a financial firm and doing that. And then you guys talked about it and got the idea of, you know what, let us start our own business. And that again could be scary. So what was your experience with that? What are some of the big takeaways for the people that might be in that same place as you are, where they want to go into some sort of business, whatever that might be, and live their 9 to 5?
Yeah, you want to go first on that?
No, I would say it's a big risk. It's not an easy decision, and it's risky, but I still would encourage someone to do it if that's their dream and that's their passion. What I would encourage is, because it is, you know, we're talking about it from a financial side. Financially, it is so risky to start your own business that I would do as much as you can to have your personal finance a little bit more conservative and a little bit prepared on that emergency side, just because you are taking a big risk. But that's not to discourage anyone from doing it. In fact, I completely encourage someone to start their own business and go for it, live their dreams. The other piece of advice I would have is find great mentors, people who have done something similar or in a similar capacity that you could bounce ideas off of. I think that's invaluable.
Okay, awesome.
Yeah, I guess what comes to my mind is a lot of the points Rebecca said were spot on, and I think just if your overall passion is not where you're working, or you see something greater, it may be scary. It may not work out, but maybe that experience, you're not going to know till you try, and regardless of outcome, if it works out, great. If not, you know, there's always going to be another opportunity. So it's not taking the shot. You don't know how it's going to have ever unfolded. So and like Rebecca said, good mentors, a support system, positive energy, positive reinforcement, you know, around you, I think goes a long way towards you being able to do that.
Yeah. I think the other thing too is I find a lot of business owners, they don't just start one business. Maybe they've tried a couple times and failed at each time, and then they launch the thing that's really successful for them. And there's a lot of lessons that we can learn from failure. So I would encourage someone not to be afraid of messing up or failing as well.
Yeah. And what I would say to that too is, if you're not failing, then you're not learning, right? I mean, it is definitely a learning aspect of that. And as you said, it's something scary, and being able to kind of venture into that definitely is something that I also believe that you have to risk to be able to find out what's going to be on the other side of that risk, right? You guys are obviously now doing your own stuff. What is it that you guys decided to do different than what you were doing at the company you were working for, or what kind of products do you offer to help people in their financial needs?
I would say that what we do great at is listening and hearing the need.
Okay.
I talk a lot about there's a million tools out there, and it's hard for all of us because when we're at New York Life, not to pick on a company, but great company, but we're told and taught about their products and why they're great for everybody. But the truth of the matter is maybe the New York Life vehicles, as an example, aren't the right fit, or maybe they are the right fit, but MetLife or Prudential or AIG has something that is very similar but much more beneficial to that family. Maybe it's a combination, that word diversification, being independent, not just for ourselves as a business owner, but being independent as an advisor, to be able to take in everything that your family is describing, their pain points, and being able to present and speak independently and not be afraid to speak to some of the drawbacks that these investments have, because people do respect honesty, and every investment is going to have a trade-off. When I worked at this bigger company, when I worked at New York Life, again, great company, but it was only New York Life we could speak to, and I realized that there's much more out there that you need to be able to present.
Yeah, got it. Yeah. And are you guys able to do financial services just in New York, or what states are you guys able to do business?
Yeah, so I'm a licensed fiduciary. So on the investment side, I have clients many different states: Florida, New Jersey, Connecticut, Arizona, Virginia. I'm sure I'm forgetting some off the top of my head. So no, we are able to work with families across the U.S.
Okay, awesome. And if people wanted to connect with you guys, find out more about your products, how can they connect with you guys?
100%. They could visit our website, is dynamicwealthinc.com. Right on that page is a place to book an introductory call. We always call it our get to know you call. 15 minutes. The point of it is not intimidating. It's really to get to know you. What are your goals? What are you looking to accomplish? And do we feel we may be able to help you or not? They can visit us there. They can also check out our social pages. We have Facebook, an Instagram, a LinkedIn. If you search Dynamic Wealth Strategies, you should be able to find us. If you don't see colors of bright green and gray, you've maybe spelled a word wrong. But the last place to look to, we have some YouTube videos up that are on a bunch of different topics, some personal, some financial, educational. So check out our YouTube page as well.
Awesome. What is one of the products that you are finding that most people need that you offer?
I would say guarantees against market loss, because the worst thing that when the market's doing really well and we look at our Facebook stock or Apple, Amazon, whatever, it feels like that train, that ride is going to go forever. And when things go the other way, when there's uncertainty and there's volatility, or when perhaps you need the money most, right? It's always when you need the money. The guarantees that maybe don't give you as much in the good years, but there's stability when you need the money in the bad years. You build a house, you start with the basement. Everybody talks about the pool or the kitchen, the entertainment room, whatever, but the basement has to be there. And I think that really starts with having money set aside or invested that cannot lose any value.
Yeah, I hear you say all the time to people that when you don't lose as much, you don't have to earn as much to have the same success. So if there's some sort of buffer or protection against how much you can lose, that's certainly valuable. And a lot of times in our strategies, we'll then couple it with another strategy that may offer unlimited growth, so that you have the best of both worlds, depending on what the economy is doing, depending on how the tax law changes.
Timeline, so on and so forth.
Yeah. Awesome. And I have a couple more questions for you guys. One of them being, the people that are listening to us and might be watching us, if they have any kind of financial challenges, whatever that might be, what are some of the things that they can do now before maybe reaching out to you guys that it can probably help them gear to the right path in their financial struggles?
Yeah, so maybe easier said than done, but having a face-to-face with yourself and maybe your spouse, your family. Money's, it's a very emotional, I use that word again, very emotional thing, and it can be very uncomfortable. It doesn't have to be, but being on the same page with yourself and being real with yourself and your family. Okay, this is what my concerns are. This is why I haven't been able to alleviate that pain. This is something that maybe I've kind of, pushed. When I was at the gym, I remember a client or two would say, "Oh, I don't want to go by the squat rack because I see all these muscular guys, putting all this weight on." It was intimidating. And I think that can apply here where finances can be intimidating. So being realistic and knowing what your pain points are so that you can speak to that can only lead you to a better path. So that would be kind of my one thought on that.
Mm-hmm. Right. I agree. As far as getting started, it's just to get started. You take a very small step, whether that's taking a meeting with someone, whether that is, just printing out all of your statements and reviewing them for yourself to understand where your money is, whether it's reviewing a credit card statement and saying, hey, what are these charges? Do I need to be continuing to pay these charges? There's lots of little small steps. And I believe that, you take one small step, feel good about it, then you take the next, then you take the next.
Yeah.
And I was just going to touch on, don't worry so much about, well, this is what I have, but I don't have as much as maybe this person, or, I'm just getting started. I'm too old for this, or, I missed my good years. And, those are all thoughts in our head. Push the noise to the side and focus in on what really matters to you.
Yeah, no, I love that. Definitely focus on you and stop comparing yourself to others. And, you talked about money is an emotional aspect, and it is, right? It's like your relationship. Sometimes you don't want to face it, and it's hard to look at those bank statements or look at the negative amounts in your bank, and you sometimes tend to just let that to the side, just like maybe if you're in a toxic relationship. Sometimes you don't want to deal with it and just want to go about it, except not knowing that that's actually creating more damage. And you gotta just be able to face it head on and deal with what emerges, and then say, hey, you know what, this is the reality. Something has to give, and we got to be able to take that from that perspective, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah. My last question for you guys is, obviously you guys are very successful, and I believe that every person that's very successful and has created a business and or some sort of or working through their legacy, even if they're in the process, they have some sort of habits or rituals that they do on a day-to-day basis. Do you guys have any of those things that you do every day, or at least most of the days, to just kind of keep you going in your journey, in your life, in whether it's business and or personal?
Yes.
Yeah, so I tend to be very systematic. Little wins along the way. So going to the gym in the morning, making sure to get at least an hour in the morning before work with our little guy that's 18 months. Making sure that the other team members are in a good place mentally in their life. And trying to be as good of a husband as I can to Rebecca.
Oh, that's kind.
Yeah,
thank you.
Yeah. So,
yeah.
But all that, you can't be I don't believe you can't be successful at whatever it is you do if you have negativity or unhappiness from the outside, attacking you in terms of what you do. So just try and find as much positive energy as you possibly can.
Yeah.
Good advice. I love this question. I'm so interested in what others say about this as well. The one little ritual that I have is I try every single week, the beginning of the week, I write down the 3 big things that I want to work on that week that'll drive the business forward. So it can't be something that's a day-to-day that I have to do. It has to be something that's going to advance the business. Then what I try to do is every single day, I try to plug in time to just touch on each of those three things. I'm not going to say that I'm great at it every single week. I really do at least try to structure my day so that I'm focusing, okay, what are the three big things? But when I am in that habit and flow of really staying to that, I really do make a lot of progress, and it does work.
Yeah, no, I love that. I love that. And as you were saying, Adam, taking those little steps, I do believe that small commitments lead to big commitments, whatever that may be in your life, right? Whether it's in business and or personal. So no, that's awesome. Guys, anything else you guys want to share before I let you go?
And I've very much enjoyed speaking with you.
So much
I could feel your positive energy through the screen.
Energy is a real thing.
Yeah, no, definitely it is. Definitely it is. Well, again, thank you for having you both here at the show. Really enjoy having this conversation with you guys, and
Thanks for having us.
Yeah, learn more from you guys. And for the rest of you guys, do me a favor. Please make sure you guys go ahead and check them out. Check their website. I'm gonna have all those links here in the podcast. And do me a favor, share this message because somebody needs to hear this. And I will see you guys at the next episode of You Can Overcome Anything podcast show. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Cesar Espino, real estate investor, business coach, and consultant, and author of the book, You Can Overcome Anything, Even When the World Says No. My number is 424-501-6046. In my book, I talk about making the necessary changes to shift your mind for prosperity and certainty. Pick up your copy at Amazon. I also love helping families with their real estate and can purchase your house fast and all cash. Follow me on Instagram, Facebook, and LinkedIn. My number is 424-501-6046.
Thank you for having me today. I am so glad you've tuned into this podcast. You can find me at your favorite podcast platform where you can like, subscribe, comment, and share. And to learn more about myself, my services, you can find me at www.cesarrespino.com, or you can also find me at your social media. Thanks for joining me, and I am looking forward to having you at the next episode. And know you truly can overcome anything.